Everyone wants happiness and success, and we know how to get you there. Come listen to the Leadership Society of Arizona as we teach a proven logic to help you simplify life, overcome challenges, and predict the future. You're listening to the Logic and Life Coaching Podcast. Welcome to the Logic and Life Coaching Podcast. My name is Chuck Zulanas, and I'm joined by our special guest, Dr. Jacob Kashiwagi.
Hi, Chuck.
How are you?
Good.
Okay, good. Well, I am excited to have you on. I think it is always a treat to hear more about your perspective on certain things. Sometimes there are a lot of things that can bring us down in daily life. We can think a lot about it, and I think your perspective, being very logical, being just really based on principles of natural laws or things that you've observed, help us to at least they help me to better understand what's going on. So my question today is in regards to traumatic events. So I know there's we've had derivations of this sort of topic on this podcast in season 1, but I kind of wanted just to go through it again, just so I guess I can get a better understanding or a grasp. I've had some friends recently that have talked to me about some really traumatic experiences in their lives, and they've had a really tough time reconciling that with taking personal responsibility or thinking that they're in control of their whole life. And often in those circumstances, you think, well, it was out of my control. Whereas the logic generally says that you control your whole life from beginning to end. And so it's hard to reconcile the two when stuff like that happens, where it's really life-changing, really traumatic. It's very difficult to reconcile those two. So yes. How would you go about doing that, or trying to explain that sort of thing from this circumstance?
Okay, well, first, if someone's going through a tough time, I don't try to explain anything to that person.
Okay.
I just listen. But like when I go through hard times, I've gone through a lot of hard times in my life, and there's a couple of things that I do. Well, first, I always remind myself of a quote from Gandhi, and I don't even know the whole quote, but basically I watched this 3-hour movie on Gandhi, and at the end of this movie, after he actually gets killed by someone who doesn't believe in his ideals, but it has this quote that they say from Gandhi at the end. It basically goes, whenever he kind of gets downtrodden or kind of depressed because of all the injustices and the evil he sees in the world, he always reminds himself that throughout all of time, whenever he's ever seen something like that, that good and justice and love and mercy and all the good things in life, they've always conquered. Or in other words, in these times, the evil never wins. Everything always turns out in a good way. And I always remind myself of it. So when I'm going through a tough time or whatnot, regardless of if I'm the cause or not, or if I think I'm the cause or not, I always remind myself it's going to be okay. So the first thing I do whenever, I'm in a bad situation, it looks like something really life-changing bad happened to me, I always tell myself, it's always going to be okay. So I don't have to worry about it. Okay, so that's the first thing. And then in regards to well, did I cause this? Is it my fault? So the logic goes like this. In life, there are natural laws. And natural laws make it so that nothing is by chance. There's always a reason. You plant a lemon seed, you're gonna get a lemon tree, right? There's a pattern in life. There's a reason for everything, a logical reason. It doesn't necessarily mean that you control it. It means that based upon who you are and what you need, you determine the path that you go on. But the natural laws actually are what determines the effect of everything. So who you are is the cause, and based upon natural laws determine the effect. So for example, I'm walking off a cliff. Well, I'm the cause. But I don't get to make up the effect of that law. I don't get to say, I control this, so I'm going to fly now. The natural law determines what the effect of me walking off the cliff is, which is I'm going to fall. Right? So we need to remember, based upon who we are, how we do things, well, we walk through life, but the natural laws determine the effect of what our actions are, how we are, our personalities, everything like that. And it's a good thing because of these natural laws, there's always a good reason for things. So the effect is always a good one. I mean, if we determine the effect of things, we'd probably mess up all of life because of our limited understanding. But because of natural laws, we know that every person, and including ourselves, when we actually go and do things, that the right outcome is going to happen based upon what we need, based upon what other people need. Nobody ever gets cheated. Everybody always gets the natural law. And the natural law identifies based upon who you are, you get what you need. There's a pattern.
So where I feel like this is getting more theological than it is based off of the logic. I mean, everyone getting what they need, everything happening for a reason. I mean, everything happening for a reason. Yeah, of course. There's natural laws.
Yes.
If you walk off a cliff, you're gonna fall, right? Mm-hmm. So without a parachute, without a jetpack or something, you need to have some sort of force that causes you to go the other way. So I get that, but then you start adding in this idea that it's only going to happen for your good, or it's only going to happen for your benefit, or those sort of things. That starts to get more theological, right?
Oh, no. It doesn't. Because you are a certain way and you start going through life. And then you got the natural laws. And so as you do things, and the natural laws will put things in motion here. Okay. Now, what do you get? What's the effect of the natural laws? Well, over the history of time, we go back to our Gandhi quote. Whenever we've had a lot of information, we have always identified that everybody involved wins out of the situation. So when we have the information, we realize everybody wins. When we don't have the information, sometimes it seems like people lose. But when we do have the information, the understanding, we always find out that everybody wins. Now, how do I know this? Because I've seen enough situations. Observable events where I had enough information to realize when somebody thought something bad happened, that I actually went a little farther in the future. I was able to get the information, see exactly how everything turned out. Come to find out, it was a good outcome for everything. Now, some people might have had to go through some hard times, And even sometimes it might have seemed like it was unjust or it wasn't, beneficial for everyone involved, because some people might have per se gotten hurt at the time. But when you go into the future and you actually see these people's lives, what became of them and what happened, well, then you start realizing, actually, even though it was a tough time and it might seem like they didn't deserve it, when you go back, you start realizing, whoa, this person actually was able to take this tragic event that seemed to really be detrimental to them, and actually it made them stronger, or it helped them understand things about people. And so in the future, it actually really helped their lives out.
So what if it like results in death, right? Like you've heard of the earthquakes happening in Turkey, Syria.
Yes. Well, here's the thing is, right, how much do we know about death?
Probably in the grand scheme of things, very little, right?
So you know very little about what happens when a person dies, what actually becomes of that person, how it is, the situation. So here's the thing is, when you have very little information, you don't know if it turns out good or bad, because you don't know what happens after it, right? So that's one of those things where it becomes tough, because yes, we don't have a lot of information on it. And that is why a lot of people, because they think they know what happens and they think it's a bad thing, they think if it ends in death, then it's a bad thing. But for all we know, it could be the best thing ever for that person. And that is exactly what Socrates said. Socrates said the downfall of people is they think they know. But for all we know, he said, even talking about death, he said, because we know so very little, for all we know, it could be the greatest of goods. Right? It could be amazing.
Well, I mean, from like a naturalistic perspective, like where you're thinking all life is just the material. It starts at the beginning, at your birth, ends at death. For people that have that perspective, which is very scientific, or what's taught in most schools now, that life begins at birth and ends at death. There's no before or after. So
Okay, now
from that perspective, they're going to think that that's unjust, right?
Wait a minute, though, Chuck. From a scientific perspective, one situation can't all of a sudden be changed into another situation without a reason or a cause or an explanation. Like, for example, it can't be day and then all of a sudden it's all of a sudden night, just like that. Because the sun, right? The sun has to move. So it can't all of a sudden turn dark unless there's clouds moving in. And if there's no clouds moving in, or there's not like a volcano that spews ash in the air, then the day will slowly turn into night. There's a logical chain of events that turns it dark, right? Mm-hmm. If people are looking at life scientifically, well, it can't be like when you're looking at an individual life that 1 second they're not there, and then the next second, okay, it starts. And then when they die, the situation is a certain way, and then after it's like totally different. It doesn't make sense. Like,
how do you
someone's
mean?
like appearing and disappearing like just like that. That doesn't make sense. Scientifically, it doesn't make sense, right? That's what's really funny about it. So if you're a scientist, life and death, that can't be the beginning or the end, because how does things just disappear,
Well, yeah, so you convert into matter or energy, but the whole living aspect of your life, like the you-ness of that's sometimes hard to compute, right? Like before and after.
That is. And so we don't know a lot about how that computes. But in my mind, you can't just be there 1 second and not there the next second. That just doesn't make sense.
Well, I mean, your body's still there. I mean, but there's your consciousness, whatever was the thinker, right? Your mental capacities, your heartbeat, all of that has stopped. So you're thinking there's got to be an aspect that continues on.
Well, I'm just thinking, how can someone just like be there and alive and have this whole personality, whole aspect to them, and then all of a sudden be gone the next moment?
Well, I mean, that's the general sense of the funeral, right? Like you're thinking, all right, this is the end.
Yeah, like that's not how I think though, because it just didn't make sense to me.
Okay, because there's not enough information on it, and you're thinking there's got to be an aspect that lives on. You're saying, nah, I know there's got to be something after this.
Yes, I might not know what it is, and science might not have figured out what goes on, but there's got to be something. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that one moment you're here, the next moment you're gone. That doesn't make sense to me. I've never seen anything life happen like that.
Yeah, and I mean, there's the research on near-death experiences and the consciousness studies. There was this $1 million challenge to prove that the consciousness exists after bodily death. And there were all these different empirical studies that proved that the consciousness can act without the body functioning at the time because of all these different proofs. And of course, they've been documented over hundreds of years, these different proofs, which shows that the consciousness can exist after death. But you could go off of those. Some people don't believe those, but then,
Yeah.
I mean, we can leave it. We can leave it at we don't know enough information to say that there's nothing after death.
Yes, so I say, okay, we don't have a lot of information before or after someone gains consciousness. But there must be something.
Got it.
Right?
Okay.
That's what I look at.
So that's the aspect in regards to death. So most people think the biggest injustice that happens in life is death, right? It's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe that there's a separation. I can't believe that this has happened. This is the worst thing ever. So they probably don't have that perspective or have the information on it to feel that way. So then in regards to other experiences, you're also thinking it's a lack of information.
Definitely. And that's why I say, you know, I've had death in my family. My two older brothers, it wasn't like a happy death either. You know, it was kind of a tragic type death. But I look at it and I don't know what happens after death. Right? Exactly what happens. My logic tells me there must be something. It's not like all of a sudden gone and all of a sudden it's like a totally terrible thing. So knowing that I don't know all the details to it, I can't assume it was bad. So now, because I don't know, I have to go with what I do know. And what I do know is when I do have all the information, everything has always ended up really good for everybody. So now this is how I work. I take what I do know and all that I've observed, all these many instances where good things only have come of perceived tragic events, and I apply that now to where I don't have enough information, which means when I don't have enough information, well, a good event must occur still. There must still be a good outcome, even though I don't know what it is. And this allows me now to say, you know what? Since I don't have enough information, I have to assume this is a good thing. And it's going to end really well, even though I might be able to not understand how it will end. So then I say, okay, I can move on. This is great.
Okay. So having that perspective that every time you've observed something that has happened in your life, when you've had a lot of information, you found that even the hard times, like for example, when you were in high school where you broke your arm at playing football because you were the smallest kid on the team and you weren't supposed to be doing that. You found that to be a good experience.
Yes, definitely. I mean, that has saved me of so much pain in the future. Much worse things. So I would say that was great. And even the person who did that to me, who tackled me and broke my arm, and caused me all that pain at the time, I thank him, because if it wasn't for that experience, right, I never would have learned the things I really needed to learn at the time. But here's the thing, the main thing is, in life, what you got to do is you have to remind yourself, everything that we have a lot of information on, we know there's patterns, and these patterns are very understandable, and they make sure that things happen the right way, right, in everything that we do. Second, right, most of the fears that people have are in the future, that they're not even going to happen. And a lot of times when people are looking right now and they say, well, I'm not good right now, a lot of times they're making a decision because they fear so much about what's going to happen in the future.
I'll keep that in mind. Thank you so much, Dr. Jacob, for that explanation. We apologize for any sort of video issues if there were. Thank you, listeners, for listening, and viewers for watching. Have a good rest of your day.